Hello, I'm Ritchie Knox, and you are tuning in to Virtuous Teacher, a place where I share the game and the lessons I've learned over the last 14 years with you in hopes that they can help you. In this episode, I'll be sharing some of the most impactful quotes that I've heard with my audience in hopes that they help you and do for you what they've done for me. All right, that's what we're doing today. Before we do, please be sure to check the descriptions for ways to support and contact or connect with me so that we can take this to the next level. But without further ado, I got to share these with you because, that's what kind of moves me, quotes and scriptures and verses and stuff like that. And I take those quotes and I just apply them to my life. And I'm hoping that that's what happens here. The very first quote I want to share with you is, do your job. I once asked this lady who had been at my school for 20 plus years. On the very first day, I said, ma'am, can you share with me some lessons, maybe a quote or something that will help me take my career from this day to in the future? I was very nervous as a teacher. I was just like, what if I mess up, or what if the kids don't like me? So I was just looking for inspiration, especially from elders or people who have been there for a while. And her answer absolutely surprised me. She didn't say anything miraculous. She just said, do your job. And when I heard that, it put everything into perspective for me. Let me explain this to you. What she means by do your job is, look, you're there to do a job. Do it. You can't get in trouble when you're doing your job. You can't get distracted when you're doing your job. You're there to do a job. Do it. If your job is a teacher, teach. It's really simple. And I think that's what she was trying to tell me. Look, this job is not complicated. Your job is not complicated. Just do your job. This works twofold. I'll tell you the other way that this works. Sometimes you get into a role and you start doing several things. You're wearing multiple hats. And I know it sounds cool, but one of the testaments to why I've lasted so long in the same school, by the way, and that's very, very rare, it's because I do my job. I know what my job is. I don't cross lanes. I don't try to do the principal's job. I don't do the assistant principal's job. I don't do my neighbor's job. And sometimes I get flack for that. Like, hey, he doesn't do more than his job. And you know what? I've grown to accept that criticism because you have to think about you too, right? And I am there to do a singular job, and that is teach my subject. And I do that better than anybody could ever do, right? Better than anybody. No one's had to do my job since I've been there. So that's what it is. Do your job. Sounds very simple when you think about it, and that's because it is. The second quote I want to share with you is use your tool belt. And here is how I'll set this one up. Sometimes, or at least in the past, when I had a class coming, especially a class that I was a little nervous about, I would say, man, what if so-and-so does this today? What if so-and-so does that today? Or what if this student or that student? What if the entire class just breaks apart and just tries to drive me crazy? Well, teachers are superheroes. And if you know anything about superheroes, they have tool belts or these things they wear around or their costume. And they have all these little buttons. And Batman comes to mind. He has this beautiful tool belt. He presses this, smoke comes out. He presses that, a laser shoots or something to that effect. And teachers have the same capacities. And your tools are slightly different. So if you're in the classroom and your kids are going off and acting like evil villains, use your tool belt. Use your weapons, and I don't mean weapons literally, but I mean use your tools. That being, hey, phone. How do you summon a phone? You just raise your hand and the phone slaps into your hand. I don't know, but hey, call home. That's a tool that you can use to equal out bad behavior. Write-ups. People don't believe in writing things up. Well, you better start documenting some of this bad behavior because otherwise they're going to keep getting away with it and keep doing it. RTIs, response to interventions, whatever interventions your school has in place, that's a tool within your tool belt. And you need to start utilizing it. Maybe emailing parents, emailing other teachers or support. Perhaps it's classical music to keep the class calm. You have a lot of tools as a teacher. And let me tell you your least effective one, yelling and screaming. That's your least effective tool. And if that is the only tool that you're relying on, I said, be quiet. If that's the tool you're using, you're not quite effective, are you? I'm pretty sure it only works for just a moment until, it kind of wears off and you get the right kids that might even laugh when you get upset because it is funny. But There's nothing funny about stopping the class and having that student call their parent in front of everyone. That stops being funny real quick. You'll find out. Or, after class, referring that student to a counselor. These are tools that you have within your tool belt. And you might want to start using them. And once I started implementing that strategy, man, it really helped me out. And, one of my other tools is changing students in different locations. If a student is having a lot of problems in this area, one of my tools is to give him or her a new seat in a different space and swap that student with another student. All right, that's a tool. That's a tactic or strategy. Try it out. Okay, number 3, my third quote that has changed my teaching career is focus on the dream, not the obstacle. A lot of times as people, we worry, we're very anxious, we're scared. What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? You're focusing on the obstacle, okay? You're focusing on the negative. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want to focus on what could go wrong or what is going wrong or what's difficult about the task. Focus on the dream. If your dream is to become a teacher with a master's degree, focus on achieving that goal. Don't focus on all the papers you'll have to write, all the sleepless nights you'll endure. No, focus on the dream that you have. If your goal is to get through your worst class and get to the very end, having taught your lesson, focus on that. Don't focus on, the fact that little Johnny has a behavioral issue. Focus on the dream. What is your dream as it relates to being a teacher? Focus there, and you will actually leapfrog and hurdle some of your biggest obstacles. And you'll realize, focusing on my dream is so much easier than focusing on what could go wrong. Since I've heard that, it's made my life so much better. And that's not just as a teacher. That is as a person. For example, my goal is to make this podcast big and have it be shared amongst educators and have people email me for consultations. You know what the obstacles are? No one sharing, no one commenting, no one watching, no one viewing. These are all the obstacles. But I can't focus on that, can I? Had I focused on some of those things, you wouldn't be hearing my voice right now. So I have to focus on the dream, no matter how difficult the task towards reaching that dream is. And that's what I mean by focus on the dream, not the obstacle. Try it out. All right, number 4, my fourth quote. This is a new one. This is probably the most recent one on my list. And unlike some of the other ones, this is one that I generated myself with some inspiration, of course. But comfort is your enemy. Okay. A lot of times as teachers, we want comfort. We want the easy class. We want the best students in our class. We want everything to be comfortable. But you know what comfort is? It's your enemy. You want to know why? Because when you're comfortable, you don't grow. It's discomfort that makes you dig into your tool belt and start to strategize and figure things out. It's discomfort that makes you dig deep. You can't dig deep from a space of comfort. All right. In fact, when you're comfortable, sometimes you're vulnerable. All right. That's not just teaching. We're talking about life right now. I can't get comfortable. I can't say, oh, all my bills is paid. I got $1 million. You know what? I'm not going to go to work anymore because I'm comfortable. If I had $1 million in the bank, I would quit my job and I would stop doing what I'm doing and stop trying to help. And while that would be great for me to have $1 million sitting in the bank that I can just look at and feel proud, look at the hundreds and thousands of kids that I wouldn't be helping on a daily basis. When I say today I taught a class, in another class, and another class, and I helped kids learn something they would have never learned had they not come across me. And I mean never. I mean even going to college, they would have never learned what they learned from me today. Because it just it's impossible. People don't teach the way I teach. They don't teach the things that I teach. So I'm so glad that I'm still doing this work and that I am not comfortable enough that I can just say, all right, I'm going to rest on my laurels. No, discomfort is your friend. That is how you grow. That is how you contribute. That's how you dig deep. That's how you find what you're made of. When you're comfortable, you can't do that. And this is why comfort is your enemy. Number 5, if a 3-year-old can't understand what you're teaching, then you're not teaching it right. That's a tough one. And I believe that stems from or originates from Einstein. Don't quote me on that. But when you're explaining your lesson and you're giving instruction to a group of students, if a 3-year-old cannot understand your lesson, chances are it's too complex and you need to simplify it. Now, this is a slippery slope because you don't want to be in a class talking about A is for apple, B is for, you don't want to be in there like that, right? Or can you see what I'm doing? Like, you don't want to be like that. What I'm saying is, can your information, can your lesson be simplified enough that it doesn't take a lot for someone to understand it? That's all it really means, okay? You'll be surprised. Even the smartest people on planet Earth love simplified instruction, all right? Even the smartest people on planet Earth love simplified instruction. In fact, again, this quote originates from, say it with me, Einstein, someone thought to be extremely bright, okay? And for all intents and purposes, was extremely bright. But even he is saying simple instructions are the best. A lot of times, especially when I was growing up, I would sit in the class and I would just be like daydreaming because the teacher has gone over my head because they're an expert at their content and I'm just a kid. But when you simplify the instruction and you talk clearly and you break it down in a way that even a young 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old can understand it, then you'll realize you'll have more engagement. That is such a easy quote to apply to your life and also to overlook. I would suggest checking it out. Number 6. Here is the number 6 quote that has changed my life. There has to be at least one adult in the classroom. I know if you're a teacher, you've seen this. You've seen teachers tread a little too close to that line of friendship with students, right? They don't really have that line of delineation between adult students. It's like that line has gotten blurred more and more and more as the years have gone by. And that also happens within the classroom space where you walk in, you're not even sure where the teacher is. The teacher might be sitting amongst the students, kind of like kicked back in a seat, not really doing his or her job. And you might also see it in a different context where you'll have a teacher in the classroom arguing, fighting, yelling with the kids, going back and forth with the children. Well, at that particular point, that teacher has been deduced into a kid. So there has to be at least one adult in the classroom. And don't feel bad that you have to stand on that adult pedestal. That is what your job is. Your job is to be the teacher. Your job is not to be the friend. Now, this is a slippery slope because some teachers, that is their tool belt, befriending their students. And I'm not sure I'm against that. But there has to be a level of respect there. There has to be a line of delineation that says, hey, we can be cordial or respectful towards one another, but quite frankly, I'm not your friend. I'm not. And there has to be at least one adult in the classroom. If a student is acting out, as the teacher, you can't get or scoop down to their level and go back and forth with them. You have to take a step back, take a deep breath, go into your toolkit. Like this person is using profanity. Guess what? There's a student code of conduct book that tells you what to do when a student is doing that. There's a student preparing to walk out. You don't lose your cool. There's a student code handbook that tells you what to do or what to apply, what strategies to apply. Okay, that's that tool belt that I'm talking about. You have a book full of tools, and the student has to adhere to certain responsibilities, and their parent is the one that is basically responsible for their children's or their child's conduct. All right, you have a vast array of different things you can apply, and yelling and screaming should never be one of them. It shouldn't be. Okay, you can lose your cool sometime, but it shouldn't be your go-to. All right. And again, there has to be at least one adult in the class. When a visitor comes into the class, they should be able to easily distinguish that this person is not only the teacher, but they're in charge. They're in charge. They have control over the classroom. Okay. Control is not a bad thing. I know control has gotten a bad rep over the years, but control is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Imagine driving without control. Control is amazing. All right. Now, my final quote that I share: a student's greatest move is disrespect. That's it. Now, let me break this one down. This one's interesting. Sometimes, as a teacher, I've gotten a little nervous between certain classes, or when a certain class is about to come in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get myself mentally prepared because I know that this class is going to be very taxing. But let me just go ahead and put your worries at ease. A student's greatest move is just disrespect. Or let's go a little further. A student's greatest move is just profanity. And once you have become immune to disrespect or profanity, you have disarmed that student's greatest move. Okay? Most students, their greatest move is disrespect and talking back. Once you've pretty much gotten to the point where that doesn't affect you, then nothing they do really affects you. Okay, I'll give you a scenario. You're teaching your class, and the student is like laughing and giggling in the back of the class. Why get upset about that? Why approach that from a space of anger? Why would you do that? Because that's their greatest move. That's it. It doesn't get any worse than that usually. It's just laughing, giggling, cursing. That's about the order that it happens. Once you get used to disrespect, or I won't even say get used to, once you've taught yourself, let's use a different frame of terminology. Once you've taught yourself to be immune to that, be immune to someone laughing at you or be immune to someone calling you a name, be immune to someone using profanity. It doesn't affect you the same way. Now, I'm not saying allow it to just go unchecked. Never said that. But you're not reacting in a way that is angry or upset or erratic or reactive. No, you can become more proactive, expecting certain things to happen by realizing that they don't really have a lot of moves. It's kind of like the bully back in, when you were younger. I mean, their biggest move in most cases was being intimidating. But once you got past, being intimidated by them, they lost their power. Raise your hand if you've ever fought a bully that was terrorizing you for some time. Do you remember what happened? In most cases, with the exception of a few of y'all got beat down because you was messing with the bully. But in some cases, after you punched the bully or you fought back, they kind of went away. And that's because you became immune, or at least you took a risk in pushing past the one thing you were afraid of. And that's kind of what happens within the classroom. Once you push past being afraid of someone disrupting your lesson, someone calling you a name, someone using profanity, once you get past that, you realize there's nothing behind the curtain. The Wizard of Oz is just a little kid that, needs attention. Once you have figured that aspect of the job out, you become immune and you become a virtuous teacher. I think I'm done.